Hello good people of YouTube and welcome to my channel. This is an impromptu and somewhat unplanned video where I just want to do a quick review of the Oathmark Human Infantry and Human Light Infantry. I picked up these boxes a few days ago after having a look at the box art on the back. And I think it was this unit in particular that just gave me an idea of conversions I could do perhaps for some battle pilgrims for my Bretonnian army, which I've been building recently and done quite a few videos on. So I was looking for some alternative figures that would give a slightly different flavour to the Bretonnian army that I'm building. So I picked up these guys along with the Human Light Infantry, and again I was thinking a similar thing, battle pilgrims or perhaps some sort of unit of squires or something, just to mix in with the stuff I've been building recently, which you will remember from previous videos if you've seen them, all the head swaps and everything that I've been doing. So yeah, I went down the Oathmark path and grabbed some human infantry. So what I'm going to do is a quick look at the sprues and what you get, and then just my usual ramble because I've been playing around and sticking things together. So we'll start with the human infantry. I'm trying to do all this one-handed as usual, and I've already got the sprues out. Now you get 6 of these sprues in a box. So from my local hobby store, Mighty Lancer Games, I picked up a box of these for £25. They contain 30 multi-part hard plastic miniatures in the, traditional style of arms, heads, a body. So as you can see from that picture there, within sort of 5 pieces, you've completed a figure. And I have to say that since gluing together my Bretonnian foot knights, coming back to something like this was an absolute relief. It was just blissful. So that's what you get in the box there, the 6 frames. And we'll just have a quick look at the sprue because there are some interesting bits on here. If we start with the 5 different bodies. Now I looked at these and they were very reminiscent of the Bretonnian men-at-arms and even the Bretonnian archer bodies. I will just pick up an archer that I've done a head swap on there. You can see lots of cloth, bits of rope, quite chunky. I'll just show another one as well. Again, lots of cloth and little shields and bags and bits and pieces. So, the Bretonnian vibe is echoed, at least for me, in these Oathmark Human Infantry. And we've got lots of weapons. They're all very chunky, in that kind of heroic scale. So although these are sort of 28mm and they're not imposingly large or anything, they just have that sort of chunkiness that you get with fantasy figures, which of course they are. They're part of the fantasy range that, is Oathmark. The spears are nice as well, nice and chunky. There's even an interesting little, almost like a Norse or Viking type dragon head there to use as a standard. And as I say, you get 6 of these sprues to give you 30 figures and the shields and the weapon options. And there's some really cool stuff on here. And the heads as well I quite like. I don't think they're suitable for Bretonnia, but the expressions are fantastic. I mean, that one there, I do like them all, with the beards and the helmets, but that one there, right in the middle with the moustache and the bottom lip hanging down, he actually looks like someone I know, which is a bit spooky, but yeah, I just like it. And here as well, this guy, look at that there, you know, ears sticking out. There's almost something slightly kind of Asterix and Obelix cartoon styly about these guys, and I do think they're great. So the heads are characterful, love them loads, lots of weapon options. The shields, now I'll come on to the shields in a bit, because I am actually going to use these shields in my Bretonnian army, possibly because they echo the pavises or pavases, or however you want to pronounce it, that are carried by the Bretonnian men-at-arms. So I do like that vibe. Obviously they're not historically accurate, and I am looking at using some of these, seeing as you get 30 miniatures in a box. I am looking at using some of these perhaps in a historical medieval army as well. So that's something else I'll be touching on in this video. It's not all about the old world and Bretonnia. So that's the sprue from the human infantry. And you can see on the back there, they've made some different units up. You've got, you know, sort of hand weapon and shield. You've got bowman, and behind there, I think that might be spear and shield. So yeah, moving on to the human light infantry, which I've mentioned also. Again, I purchased this for the same reason. You look at that and you just think, yeah, actually maybe battle pilgrims for the Bretonnians, or perhaps there's some mileage there just adding to some men-at-arms in my historical Wars of the Roses, you know, Crusader, even sort of Agincourt. So I'm exploring options with these. And then, of course, when we get to the sprue, this is when it starts to get interesting, because although these are the same scale as the human infantry from Oathmark, their bodies seem slightly slimmer. They're more slender. They're obviously not wearing as much padded armor, and I just kind of got this notion that they weren't perhaps such a good fit with the Bretonnians as I'd hoped. And then when I looked at the heads again, we've got some lovely, you know, kind of beardy and moustache-laden heads there. And then we've got some cloaked or hooded heads. And I don't know if these focus, a couple with beards, but there's one there right next to my finger there that to me looked very elf-like, as does this one here. And that suddenly got me thinking, hang on a minute, and this is where I'll take a slight detour. But yeah, hang on a minute. If we've got some elf-like heads and we've got slender bodies, here are some more human heads there. I do like the bald guy there and this guy here with all the hair. So yeah, my creative cogs start turning. The shields here as well, and again, these shields, square, not historically accurate, perhaps, but when I saw these that were slightly battered and worn, I thought, yeah, those shields on the human infantry, so these are the light infantry shields, those shields on some human infantry converted to look like Bretonnian battle pilgrims is where I want to head with these. But if I can just come back to the light infantry bodies and the various weapon options that we've got, bows, there's a spear there that looks very elf-like. And this is where I start to think, right, okay. So moving away from Bretonnia or medieval 100 years war of the Roses, whatever, where I'm looking to kitbash and perhaps create something interesting, moving away from all that, I start to think about, well, if we've got hooded heads, if we've got some elf-like weapons, if we've got plenty of bows, I'm getting a Rangers of the North vibe off these guys and this sprue, if not Wood Elf. And I'm thinking Lord of the Rings and Middle-earth, which of course is a game that I also like to play, and I've got quite a few factions. So the first thing I did was just build one of those light infantry archers and try and make it look as much like an elf or a ranger as I possibly could. And this is the end result. So I thought, well, how does that compare? So I've actually cut this one off the base to give you guys a better idea of scale. So he's cut off the base, and then I dug out an old Haldir model that I'd started painting and hadn't quite finished. You know, back in the day when you'd block everything out and then work up the highlights, and I was using lots of washes and stuff when I painted this guy. I am not going to paint over this model because I do like every now and again just to kind of keep one model as a sort of an example of a previous painting technique or skill, or, you know, so I can see how I've improved. It does need highlighting, and I will highlight it, and I will touch up any areas that might be damaged, and I have already started to address the base. I used to do a lot of, you know, that kind of graveling, which is fine, but now you can get more sort of textured paints and things. So anyway, I digress, but there is a Haldir model just to show, he says, dropping the phone on the table, just to show the scale comparison between these Oathmark Human light infantry and Games Workshop Middle-earth or Lord of the Rings miniature. I mean, this one's been around a while, and this particular model has been in my possession for over, well, probably over 20 years now. So yeah, and I think that's pretty good. I think that scale is pretty bang on. So I continue to explore this avenue, and I was rummaging through my Middle-earth box of bits and so on, and then I started to to wonder how many of us who used to play Lord of the Rings / Middle-earth in the early 2000s have in our collection somewhere a Faramir with a missing sword arm. I've actually got a complete Faramir which I've assembled and primed, ready for painting, and then I've got this guy with a missing arm, and I had another guy with a missing arm as well, another version with a missing arm, all the same model. Now I have been on eBay, and you can pick up 3D printed sword arms for a few quid, and I did think about that at one point, but then just kind of got into Old World a bit more and put Middle-earth down for a while. And then, of course, I picked up these sprues here, the light infantry, and lo and behold, there are some sword arms, and that one caught my eye, right? And I'm thinking, I wonder. So, for your edification and viewing pleasure, I snipped the arm off just above the elbow and glued it on to one of my Faramirs with missing arms. So if you do decide to go down the Oathmark route, and you do have a Faramir or two with no sword arm, and you do have some Faramir's Rangers, and you do want to perhaps expand on those, or maybe do some wood elves, and you don't want to pay GW prices for GW models, then I think the light infantry actually make a good proxy. They make a good proxy for Faramir's Rangers, and they make a good proxy for some wood elves. So I've got some of these in, which are the chunkier models, the new plastics. They're very cinematic. I do love them. But just to give you an idea, if you want to kind of, you know, mix it up a little and have some Rangers that aren't perhaps quite so flamboyantly dressed, I think these models work. I do think they work. And as I've already said, I also think they make quite respectable elves. So that was something that caught my eye with the light infantry from Oathmark. They actually sit really well with Middle-earth. So my plans changed for the light infantry, and I'm going to save most of those for my Lord of the Rings factions and do something with those guys there. And that is why, as I said, I built this one and thought I'd show you guys how well I think they fit, and also, of course, how you can restore your Faramir model if he is indeed missing a sword arm. I think that's brilliant. Arguably better than the original sculpt, because if there's one thing that these metals did suffer from, it was thin, soft, bendy swords. So I like that. So yeah, so there's a little bit of Middle-earth goodness there, which I would just push to one side. Now, I do want to add at this point that I haven't given up on Bretonnia and potentially using some of these models. So here are some Bretonnian archers I did, featured in a previous video with some head swaps. And just to give you a feel, again, for scale, although these are slightly slender, this is an Oathmark, a light infantry chappie, against the Bretonnian models, and scale-wise, it's good. It fits. It's obviously more kind of cloth and woodland sort of attire heavy than these are. These are really, you know, they've got sort of bulky fabric, padded, armored jackets or whatever. So there is a sleekness to these models that you don't have with your Bretonnian archers, for obvious reasons, which is why I was thinking maybe a unit of squires or something. But I'm actually just using one of these guys, and I'm going to paint him as an elf. I have done a bow swap on this one in a similar way to the restoration that I did on Faramir. I cut this one off just below the elbow, but above the wrist, because that is a bow from the Bretonnian command sprue options. You can give it to a cleric or a monk. The figure in there, I know he's a special character that kind of adds extra beefiness to your Bretonnians, but I can't remember what they call him. But basically, the monk figure there comes with the option of holding a bow and an arrow. So this arm here is still from the light infantry Oathmark box, but I've repositioned it slightly. I've had to glue it to the Bretonnian bow there to steady it. The quiver at the end there, the feathers, they actually touch the light infantry hooded head that I've used. So there is a gap just under his neck that I will fill with a bit of green stuff. There is also a gap just under his arm where it's not sitting true, because I actually think this arm option here is intended to be used diagonally with a bow that is lowered and being reloaded with the arrow pointing at the ground. That's a common pose in a lot of medieval stuff, but I wanted this guy shooting, so I'm going to be doing a bit of green stuff work there just to tidy that conversion up. But that is a Bretonnian bow being held by an Oathmark light infantry figure, and I just like the idea of having maybe one sneaky little elf in there. Again, it kind of goes with the ideas I've been talking about, using dwarves, using some of my halfling sculpts to create a motley crew of different races in the Bretonnian army, also using an ogre as a unit filler as well, painted up in some Bretonnian colours. I just like the Brothers Grimm sort of fairy tale type approach to human armies. I mean, let's face it, you know, we've all watched Shrek with our kids, or maybe even we watched it when we were kids. But I just like that kind of, you know, proper full-on fairy tale type fantasy element, even if, you know, I'm making it grim dark and more sinister with what I'm doing here. So the light infantry gives us a little bit of Woodland Realms / Faramir's Rangers, and some, you know, conversion and restoration options there. So that was the thinking behind this guy. So he is now going to slip into one of my units of Bretonnian archers. And I will move back now to the human infantry box. So again, just a quick reminder, this is the box I've now moved on to. So we've left the light infantry behind and we're now looking at these guys that I was thinking, oh yes, battle pilgrims. So based on the Bretonnian men-at-arms and the chunkiness of those models and the way that these human infantry were looking, I actually built one up here. So this is a human infantry chap straight out the box. I've not put a shield on him because obviously they come with the square shields, and there's one I've just snipped off the sprue, haven't cleaned it up or anything. So that's the square shield for the human infantry. This is the square shield for the light infantry, right? Slightly smaller, bit ragged, battered. That's the one I'm using for my battle pilgrims in my Bretonnian army. But I'm also starting to think of these, obviously, from the point of view of something historical. And I don't know if, you know, the helmets and the faces and so on would allow a kind of move in the direction of, you know, Saxons or anything like that. But I did start thinking, so we'll park the battle pilgrim idea for a while, and I did start thinking about my men at arms and how compatible these would be. So here we've got a unit of FireForge medieval archers from the Deus Vult range. Again, just as a scale sort of comparison, I think they fit quite well. They're in shadow a bit there, which I do apologise for, but I normally do my videos in the evening where I've got better control of the lighting, but I've got to get this one done this morning. So anyway, I think the scale is good. They work well there, and I'm thinking maybe with some head swaps, some, you know, more medieval looking heads, there might be some mileage there. And I'll tell you where I'm going with this. This isn't just fanciful thinking, oh, whilst I'm here and doing this, I just wanted to drop in a Deus Vult Foot Knight. Now, I've been using these guys. If you've seen my previous video, you will remember that I've been using the Foot Knight bodies to convert and stick in with my Bretonnian Foot Knights, those very big and loved or loathed models from Games Workshop. So I did some conversions there to make that more kind of high fantasy. So that's a Foot Knight body there. We can just nip across the table quickly. I've got all sorts of other junk on this table. But there, that's the Foot Knights I've done for Bretonnia with added FireForge goodness. Now, this is a Foot Knight built straight from the box. And I will show you the box in a second, although this video isn't really about these guys. This is one built straight from the box, so I can do a size comparison with their medieval archers. And again, it looks good, you know, it's cool, it's typical, sort of chunky FireForge miniatures, but you know, I love these guys. I've got lots of these. I've got several boxes of each now. And here is the Oathmark. The Oathmark Human Infantry, which I've just bobbed alongside there to try and give you some idea of scale. So I am thinking about using these guys, these Oathmark figures in some of my historical armies, and I will now tell you how. I've swapped the shield on one. Okay, I've put the spear on this one, which looks slightly elven. Whether this goes into something historical or whether this goes into Lord of the Rings, I don't know, because I've given him a round shield. Now, these round shields are from War Games Atlantic, part of their general accoutrement, the same sort of range where they do the horses and, you know, riderless horses and stuff. These are from their range of extra bits. So I bought a box of those. I can't remember how many you get, 30, I think 32 shields maybe. And I will be swapping those out with these square shields, so that the Oathmark stuff I'm going to give round shields and try and give them a historical context, and the square shields I will be looking at using for my Bretonnians, particularly that one for the Battle Pilgrims. So having said that, and I am trying to wrap up within half an hour, I built another Oathmark infantry, but this is light infantry again, and I went for a different head choice and some hand weapons. Excuse again the detachment scars, I haven't cleaned this up properly yet because I was gluing it together and wanted to get this video out. But this is a light infantry figure, and this is the human infantry as opposed to human light infantry, and they both work, I think, really well. So you've got this light infantry figure as well, as I said, with the hood. That's very elf-like, but I wanted to show the shield swap on that. These, I am thinking, from a medieval point of view, I am thinking Irish Kerns, perhaps. Probably won't use too many of these because they are quite heavily armoured, and they're more men-at-arms, and I might just dot a couple in amongst my men-at-arms. Maybe clean up anything that isn't historically accurate on there if there is an issue with it, but do head swaps and put those guys down there with these. So the Oathmark Human infantry may feature sprinkled in amongst my medieval units from FireForge and the Deus Vult range. The light infantry miniatures, as I said before, could end up being in Lord of the Rings, some Lord of the Rings factions, just providing a bit of additional eye candy. But these guys, I'm starting to think, might work well as a small unit of Irish Kerns in my historical and medieval stuff. So that, and again, just scale-wise there on the end, you can see it's a good fit, it works. So there are some interesting historical options there using those fantasy miniatures from Oathmark. And to finish off with, we come back to the Bretonnian men-at-arms and the whole thing I've been harping on about all this time. And here is a conversion I have done for a Battle Pilgrim. Now, I gave this guy the toothache head from the Bretonnian, I think it's the archers box, the bowmen, peasant archers, but the rest is Oathmark. So we've got the light infantry shield with all the battle damage and everything. We've got the Oathmark body with the Oathmark human infantry body with human infantry arms, and I've cut some notches into the sword blade there because the weapons are nice and chunky, and I've cut some notches in there to make this look like a ragtag sort of warrior. The idea being on pilgrimage, you know, battle pilgrims, you know, they're in for the fight, blah blah blah, and yeah, these guys are going to be rough and ready and battle worn. Now, what I will probably do is I will probably take some heads, Bretonnian heads, or maybe even FireForge heads that fit well enough, and I will probably end up snipping helmets off and sculpting sort of bald heads with the typical kind of classic monk hairdo, the ball patch, the basin haircut with a ball patch on top. Excuse me. So I'll probably do some green stuffing and converting of heads for my battle pilgrims, but I'll be looking at the unit size for those and coming up with an optimal number, and before I start, you know, converting willy-nilly, and I'll get that done. The other thing is I'll need some kind of grail reliquary or relic or whatever to go in amongst these. So I will be looking at perhaps picking something suitable up, maybe from the Reaper miniatures range, just to kind of fill out that unit. So very much a work in progress, but again, so you guys can see there is a Bretonnian men-at-arms. He's hunched over his shield, so not very, but you can see against that the scale of the Oathmark human infantry is good. You know, this chap with a Bretonnian head and a light infantry shield, I think he looks pretty good. I think he looks like a pilgrim. And as I said, I might do some head conversions to make them look more like monks, but I like it. I like that. So, out of those 2 boxes, I have rambled on for half an hour. So just to summarise, I've got some ideas for battle pilgrims there with the Oathmark human infantry. I've got some ideas for some medieval, maybe characters or a few units of the more unusual infantry using the Oathmark human infantry and the human light infantry, particularly here to make perhaps a unit of Irish Kerns out of plastics rather than buying some metals. And of course, there's the Foot Knight for scale. Again, that's a FireForge Deus Vult figure rather than an Oathmark figure, which I know is fantasy, and it's the Osprey range of books that publisher that I think have got the copyright for these guys. But anyway, it's their game, their models. So just to finish up, the human infantry from Oathmark, I paid 25 quid for 30 models, and I've got plenty of stuff I can make from those guys. The human light infantry, again, 25 quid for 30 models, and same applies. I think they make some interesting figures. Plus, of course, I fixed a Faramir out of that box. And finally, just to finish off with, I've been talking about these Foot Knights. I've spoken about them before because I added to my Bretonnian Foot Knight unit there. So these are the Deus Vult FireForge Foot Knights that I've been talking about, and that's that guy at the back there with the sword and the shield. I have featured this in previous videos, but just to refresh, 30 multi-part hard plastic models. I'll be using some of these guys in my historical forces, as well as the converting, and I can't remember how much I paid for this, but again, it was around the 23 to 25 pound mark. And that was the sprue that came in the box. So you can see the bodies that you get there. What's that, 10 on each, so there were 3 sprues, lots of head options there, and as I said before, I might be looking at doing some head swaps with all of these to create some more unique figures. So that's it from me. Again, another long ramble, half an hour. I hope you've got lots of painting done while you were listening to this, but yeah, just to finish off with, that's my first battle pilgrim conversion. Thanks for watching. I hope you liked the video. If you do, please smash that like button. Please subscribe if you haven't already. It all makes a difference, and it all helps me with building this channel. You've been a wonderful audience. I've been very distracted and enthused by this. Take care. Look after yourselves, and hopefully I will see you in the next one.